What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here. Welcome to the channel. Today is another rod review and giveaway. Make sure you like and comment in this video for your chance to win this rod thanks to Sage Fly Fishing. This is the Sage Payload 11 weight plus. It's kind of like a muskie specific, big game, big fly predator stick that we're going to be diving into. We're going to unbox this thing, take it out of the tube, break down the components, the handle design, look at their kinetic technology, really hit home on the fly rod's taper, run it through a handful of different lines and casting scenarios. I want to teach you guys some interesting techniques that you can do with this rod, especially in the 11 weight plus, and I believe the 10 weight plus has the same handle. So we're going to do a technique breakdown on some fly casting here. Yeah, and then we'll run it through a host of big flies, and I might take you upstream. There's a pretty nifty run right there, and we'll just try for like 5 minutes to catch a smallmouth. I'm not here to fish, I'm here to cast, but we'll spend 5 minutes trying to catch a smallmouth maybe at the end. So that's what you got to look forward to. Disclaimers: I don't have a relationship with Sage. I'm not on their pro team. There's no money involved in this review in any way, shape, or form. In fact, when I approached them, I made it known specifically my intentions were to give the rod away so that I wouldn't have an incentive to give a biased review. And they were on board with it. I'm really impressed with their willingness to donate, not only to me, but to you guys, to be able to give this to one of you guys for a chance to win. So huge shout out to Sage for making that happen. I will say I am a Rio signature fly tyer and an ambassador for Rio Fly Lines. Now Rio is part of the Sage, the Farbank umbrella along with Sage, but as far as I know, those companies are pretty independent. And when I asked, I didn't tell them that I had anything to do with Rio. I just approached them as I would approach anybody. My name's Gunnar. I want to review your rod. I'm going to give it away. So I wasn't trying to get any favoritism at all, and they were still on board. And the only reason I bring that up is to credit Sage for their willingness to support you guys in this channel and big game fly fishing and everything we're doing with a giveaway, because this is not a cheap piece of kit. This is a $675 rod. That is not a small thing to give away. That would have been a lovely thing for me to keep and to praise Sage accordingly for giving me such a nice rod. But no, it's for you guys, and a huge thanks to Sage for making that happen. Let's just check out the tube, because a lot of times you just get a tube, which is fine, right? Rod tubes keep your rod safe, protected, that's what they're for. But if you take your rod places, it's usually nice to have a way to strap them down, right? So you got a plastic D-ring up top, you have a little ratchet system that you can really adjust how tight that strap is. It's even got a buckle at the bottom. As far as the accessories on the tube, I know that's like such a minor thing that probably nobody cares about, but if you ride your bike fishing, if you strap this thing onto a motorcycle and do a little self shuttle, like I don't know what your gig is, man, but being able to strap that down is a big deal. So pretty good job on the tube there. I like that. Of course, you know, you got the logo and stuff up top. I will say it's got the segments sewn into the tube. I kind of prefer a sock that you pull out so that you can take multiple socks and put them in a bigger organizational system for traveling. But as far as keeping components safe, this is an excellent system. And it's just really easy to reinsert and all that nonsense. So you got all your different little sleeve components for the rod to go into the tube. So we're gonna build it tip first again, and just out of the packaging, you can see how large the diameter at the tip is. I absolutely love that. If you go to your fly shop, you're looking at rods, maybe, you should ask to cast them, but regardless, just compare the diameter of the tips, man. I preached in the TFO video about how important it is that a modern streamer rod, a big game fly rod, has to be designed around big game fly lines. They go together. They are one and the same. They are a system. They are meant to be paired. If you design a big game fly rod or a big fly rod, and you don't pay attention to what the fly line manufacturers are doing and how they've adapted their system to be able to carry max, you know, wind resistant flies, you've completely missed the point. A rod in this style has to be manufactured according to the fly lines that are being produced. That right there, that is sick. That is a beefy tip top. That's going to be just wonderful as far as what the heck's going on when we put a big fat shooting headline on here. This rod does not have any alignment dots, so you're going to have to get a little bit of feel in there and check each section as you put it on. You're going to put these on. I don't know why I'm teaching you how to build a fly rod, but you just put them on straight. They should be offset, canted from a little bit from each other, and then you twist it into place. That little twist is what's going to lock it on there and keep it nice and snug. It's really hard without alignment dots to do the bottom one, because you really have no frame of reference without the reel on there. But yeah, good to go. Aesthetically, the rod is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not super big on fit and finish. I want my just rod to be a tool because I'm gonna use it and abuse it and beat it up. That being said, it's just a nice dark tannin color blank, burgundy and bronze trim. It's subtle, it's clean, it's beautifully done. It's perfect for my water, right? I'm fishing in northern Minnesota. Everything up here is tannic. So it's absolutely perfect for my water. But these are made in America rods. These are made in Brainerd Island, Washington, right here in the States. Touches 23 separate hands, and the craftsmanship is outstanding. This is an absolutely beautiful piece of work. Looking into the components, we have Fuji tangle-free ceramic insert stripper guides. You got 3 of them. These are lovely. What an awesome design for your strippers. You can see that the whole stripper is canted forward, and the actual support braces have this nice gentle angle that sweeps towards the stripper, so that as your line is shooting, if it comes up and wraps around the blank, everything's going to slide off and make sure that you get a clean shot as that line feeds through that guide at a nice, really low angle. It's even angled down as the line is picking up off the water to be able to funnel through the rod. As you move up, you got these lightweight chrome stripper guides and a chrome tip top. That's kind of like industry standard, but the chrome plating isn't the most durable. And that's something I really want to talk about here is the guide components and line use. So there's a huge push kind of in the muskie industry. This is really only muskie related because there's a handful of guys that are dedicated, full heavy sinking line fishermen. And that's what their fisheries dictate and require. And if they guide, can you imagine, 3, 4, 5 days on the water fishing a 9" per second full sink tungsten line? It will absolutely destroy chrome guides in probably a year with heavy use. And so they put a really huge priority and imperative on the guides and their durability. Now, if you're like me, I fish, the line we're gonna put on first is the Rio Outbound Short full intermediate. I fish a full intermediate for probably 75% of my season, or I fish like a triple density, and the last 10 feet are a tungsten line, and even then they usually have a coating over the tungsten because it's not saturated with tungsten. It's not the maximum sink rate, and there's minimal, if not none, no wear and tear whatsoever. So I'll fish that full sinking line that's going to eat through these guides for maybe like 6 hours a year, 2 or 3 trips, 2 or 3 hours here and there, but I don't beat the crap out of my guides. Usually the heaviest use is with an intermediate. So you have different perspectives, and some people really push, they would be very upset that these are just chromed. They know they're not going to last, the lifetime of the rod. And then you have other guys like me, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm just not going to run a full, 30-foot sinking line on this rod. This is going to be my Outbound Short shooting head rod, float intermediate, multi-density head, like an intermediate Sink 3, Sink 5. Rio has their slick cast coating. That does a pretty good job of protecting as far as the line isn't as gritty, and it's protecting the guides from the line because it has a really slick coating over the top instead of kind of a more aggressive pure tungsten line. So I just want to address that because I think they could have done better with the guides, but it also depends on where you're coming from. If you're someone who runs a full sink, this might not be the rod you pair with that setup. But if you're running an intermediate, a multi-density head, you'll be just fine to chuck some meat. And that's something to just be aware of, especially as we get into Thomas rod, because Shanks rod is designed specifically for sinking lines, and we'll go over the guides on that one so you can see what the alternatives are, which are pretty cool. Jumping into the handle, it evokes for me a completely different emotion, like a different technique set that I can do with this rod, that when I pick up the TFO and I cast the TFO, it doesn't come to mind when I cast the TFO. The TFO for me is a single hand rod that's meant to be cast single hand style. It's meant to be choked up on, pin the butt against for your backhand to reduce wrist fatigue. That, as soon as I pick it up, that's where my brain goes. But I have also fished switch rods in the past 2 or 3 years, and this is darn close to a switch rod handle. It's got a full wells, and then it tapers out. Now that's different. Typically switches are a huge, full wells, about that long. You might get an extra inch. But it has about the same butt, the same scoop design, kind of the same handle layout, the same distance between fulcrums here for your rotation. And this to me evokes a two-handed casting style, which is so silly because it's like it's an inch difference, and there's a small minute difference in tapers between this and TFO. but this is also an 11 weight. This is also getting to not only an 11 weight, but a 9-foot 3-inch 11 weight. This is getting towards kind of the max spectrum of swing weight that a human being can really handle. Unless you're like 6'5" and have meat hooks for hands, a 9'3" 11 weight with 480 grains is going to be hard to single hand cast all day long. And so this handle design, that's the techniques I want to break down for you, as how to start incorporating both single hand. We'll cast a bunch of single hand today so you can see how it performs. And then also getting into a two-hand presentation, two-hand pickups and loads and shooting, water loading and pickup and shooting. And I don't know if that was Sage's desire or goal. I don't know if that's what they intended to set out to create. But to me, this is like a perfect bridge, a perfect handle design that says it is single hand and two hand at the same time. And that's pretty cool. So I want to break it down in that context because that's how it comes across to me. And those are the techniques I really want to hit home, because let's be real, unless you are like a really, really, really efficient caster who's practiced your butt off, an 11 weight single hand is hard to cast, especially in this length, because it's got so much leverage. Being able to switch up to two hands, man, if you practice that for just a few hours and got that down, you could musky fish all day long. So you have a heavy duty up-locking aluminum reel seat here with, you know, the typical two nuts on them that have a little rubber gasket to help them seat against each other so they don't slip. I really like that they have a designation right here. It might not be a big deal if you have a bunch of different rods with a bunch of different lines, but if you're like maybe a guide and you have a 9, 10, 11 that are all the same rod with all the same reel, with all the same line with different line weights for customers, you could just look down and know what it is. I think that's cool. You also have your hook keepers right here in the handle, similar to the TFO design. I don't know if you can see me. They do have a really nice composite cork butt section, which is nice because that butt, you know, if that's something you're bracing against, if you always put it down into the rocks, the dirt, your asphalt driveway, cement, whatever, they have a more durable butt section to take some beating down there, which I think is smart. Pretty darn smart. So the goal right now is obviously not to catch fish, but when I evaluate this rod, I want to evaluate the rod as we run through different lines with a small, medium, small fly on there, just so that it's real world, right? That's just, it kind of makes sense to me. I don't want to try to do water pickups and lay down and two-hand casting with just a fly line, and at the end we'll run it through all the big flies that I have with me. So I have like a 5-inch bucktail deceiver on a saltwater hook. It is kind of dressed to the nine. It's got some marabou and ostrich and fun things to it. But it'll give us something with water weight, little wind resistance. We are going to start with a RIO Outbound short shooting head system. This is a full intermediate 11 weight at 465 grains. Now the grain window for this rod is 420 to 480. Dead center right in the middle is 450. That is typically what a true 11 weight is paired to, 450 grains in a modern streamer line. In a short 30-foot head, you're looking for a 30, 32, 35-foot head, rating about 450 grains. So 465, it's kind of nice on that mid-spectrum level. So let's get some single hand casts in. We'll just power through, and then we'll do some backhand, and then I want to break down the two-hand casting technique that I think is really going to save you on that swing rate. So in this wind, I'm trying to throw the tightest loop I can to deal with it, because these are, you know, full fly line casts, and I really got to get a tight button up on that stop if I'm going to get it out there. Otherwise, the last 10 feet kind of just dies down and stops. That one was beauty. The 465 is loading it nice. The rod has all authority over that, no problem. I think it could be loaded even heavier. It'll be really fun to fish the full sink, which total head's like 480. So that'll be really fun to put on it and see how much deeper of a bend we get. Get a full Wells grip backhand. Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Full Wells backhand. So because of the line class, which is an 11 weight, because of how heavy and aggressive the lines are, casting that single hand forehand at a 9' 3" is really difficult. Now when you go to a backhand, the cool thing about this cork is you have a lot of play. Like you can grab it full Wells, brace that long butt against your forearm. You might not like the way that feels. It's a little uncomfortable. That's why the TFO is flat there, so that doesn't bump you. But it's not too bad. I could do that all day. You might have a bruise, you might not. Moving up just one grip so that my grip goes over that knuckle of the full Wells, that feels really good. You can see that bulb kind of tracks my muscle, so it no longer digs into me. But my casts weren't that great. I don't know why. They didn't seem to have the pop going all the way. I don't think that's what they intended. This would be a good place, a good position to fight a big fish from. You're gonna have more leverage gripping up here than you would down here. If you're gonna brace a fighting butt against your belly, this is a place to grip. It's like an extended foregrip on like a big tuna rod or something like that. The higher up you put that grip, the more leverage you have for playing fish. They might have done this with the intention of playing big fish. That could be the point of that extension, not casting. So keep that in mind, because when I go all the way up, this is way too long. It's going like past my elbow. It hits me on the bicep right there, which is why choking down to the full Wells with the extension feels a lot better. It's a lot more flush against my arm, and I have a lot more pop to it. This didn't have any pop. This had a lot of pop. So you have a lot of play on the cork. Don't think that's a bad thing. It means you get to experiment and find what works. I think a full Wells backhand was best suited for me. You hook a big fish, you'd come up here and you'd play that fish on the upper end of the cork for better leverage, pinning that extended butt into your belly, on your belt line and your hips, something like that. I want to show you how to do a water load pickup and shoot. I'm going to show you how to water load, pick up the front and the back, pick up and shoot. And then I'm going to show you an interesting technique. I think we're just going to call it the Gunnar technique. I've never seen anybody do it. That doesn't mean it's not out there. Maybe somebody did it, but I came up with it yesterday in the grass. And you're going to overhead cast, slip line, and literally shoot from an overhead aerialized position. It's a little technical, but it's pretty cool. So we're going to water load our pickup, aerialize the back cast, and shoot it with two hands using that top hand as a fulcrum. Now you're going to lay down the head, and only the head. You don't want to lay down like 36, 37 feet of line, because you're going to have to pick that up, and it's going to be really difficult, especially if it's a sinking line. So you're going to get that head. My color change is right here. I might have 1 foot of overhang, which is not a lot. If I was overhead casting, it'd be like 6 feet or 8 feet. But in this situation, I'm going to get that head out. I'm just going to cast like normal, get the head out, lay it on the water, pick it up, pop it. I'm going to get that head out, strip it so that I have no overhang. Lift, pop, give it a false cast. There's a full fly line, little to no fatigue whatsoever. Little to none, almost none. It's pretty cool. So again, we're gonna get just the head out. I need about 1 foot more there. Gonna lay it down on the back cast. Oh yeah, let me practice that for a sec, and that's gonna rip some line, dude. That was the best one yet right there, about 90 feet. You can see I had a lot of body movement in it. Moved a lot of line and picked up a lot of slack with body movement because I don't have a haul, right? I have no way to kind of take all that out of there and get that line high up in the water column. So you gotta use everything to your advantage. So you guys can see I'm not the most efficient at those techniques. It's not something I really have ever practiced, but I can pretty consistently get 80, 85, 90. There was even a few full fly line casts. If you dedicated some time, even just 2 or 3 times in your yard to really get that down, there's no fatigue involved whatsoever. And as the flies get bigger, as the lines get a little bit heavier here in a second, that could be pretty cool. Well, let me show you the technique I came up with yesterday in the grass. We'll see if it's worth anything. But you're going to overhead cast the rod like normal, but you're going to be choked all the way up. As you haul into your back cast, you're going to keep the line pinched, 3 fingers on the bottom, and you're going to use that to get your leverage. It worked yesterday. Let's see if I can do it into this what is now 10+ mile an hour headwind. Woo! There it is, man. So those are 3 techniques you can use to kind of modify this into a 2-hand casting format for reduced fatigue and really getting the most leverage out of that rod. I will say this 465 11 weight outbound short shooting head feels pretty light in that context. I would definitely want to overline it probably into a 12 weight category, a 500 grain plus category to get kind of more efficiency out of a more slower casting progression instead of really getting all of this, you know, travel and arc. That's just so hard to do one-handed in this heavy of a rod that is that long. You'd want to overline it. I can get some pretty good performance out of this 465. Some of those casts were pretty good. I'd need some practice, but you definitely want to overline it if you're going to use this rod in that setup, as that's your go-to. That's what it's for. So this is the Rio Elite Predator in an 11 weight. It runs 475 grains at 32 feet, so just a shy heavier than that Outbound short 11 weight. It is a triple density line with a Sync 3 for the last 10 feet. This would be a fantastic muskie setup. This is what I use all the time. It's one of my favorite lines for that application. Let's see how it does. So that's the head right there. You can see, man, this rod has a really stiff tip, which is what you want. It's just a really heavy rod. Yeah, just lovely. It's a little on the heavy side. The swing weight is pretty brutal. Yeah, that does feel really good on the backhand. That extended butt really does brace against your arm. Felt a little knobby. I could feel it dig into my muscle a little bit, but not too bad. So you can really see the tip can handle this so fine. Like, it's not even funny how well the tip can handle this. You can keep the casting arc pretty darn tight with the full head out, but it does respond to being opened up a little bit. You obviously get a wider loop. Having a little bit more of a prolonged stop, but it puts more load into the butt section. It can throw that 80 feet into the wind all day long. So this line, the Elite Predator, it's really paired to this rod nice. There's not that much difference aside from taper between the two. A 10 grain difference is not a lot. But man, there's just something about it. It's really cutting through the wind. It's way more stable. I have a little bit better loop control. And of course, we're not casting it as far. We probably have 20 feet of line on the reel, but it is casting really, really, really well. Really well. Let's get this out so I can reel it in. Like, really well. So that was RIO'S striper line. It's a 450 grain line at 30 feet, 480 at 35 feet. So that's the heaviest line I have. It's a 9" per second full sinking line. That loaded this rod like a dream. This rod, that was full fly line cast. This thing was so happy with that kind of grain window, 450 to 480, which is the higher end. The tip total control the entire time, absolutely no buckling, very fast recovery. That thing, it could shoot that full sink all day. Now, the rod can do it all day, but can you do it all day? 9 foot 3 inch, gripping down on that cork. It's a lot of swing weight. Going to a backhand, much, much better. That is something you could probably do all day long. I am gonna go back to, I think, the Elite Predator, which is the 475 grain line. We're gonna go up to a hole here and we're gonna run a bunch of musky flies through it. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna test some musky flies. My goal is to try to catch a 20-inch smallmouth. There's a pretty legit hole up here that usually has one really big fish in it. I don't think there's gonna be any piker muskie, but we might be able to fool a bass on a beast or something. That would be quite fun. And we'll run through 4 or 5 really, really big flies and see how the rod does and behaves. So this is the run here. Gets nice and shallow up there, dumps down super deep, especially behind that boulder. Super deep, and a lot of the bass will be right in the middle, especially right now in summer lows, and they'll cruise right up to the edge. So we're gonna take a bunch of musky flies, 10, 12 plus inch flies. This rod is rated for 12 plus inch flies. We're gonna put it through its paces. I'll show you guys what we got. But we're gonna try to catch a trophy smallmouth while we do it. We're gonna start with what I think is the most likely smallmouth fly. It's a Bob Popovich's Beast. It's my Build-A-Beast variation, dropper shank, treble hook, about 9.5, 10 inches long. Let's get that guy soaked and swimming. All right, let's see how it handles. There's a lot of tall grass behind me. What smallmouth wouldn't want to eat a 10-inch sucker? You got to be joking me. First cast, a 10-inch sucker or a creek chub. Everyone would. Every smallmouth in his right mind would want to eat that. I'm pretty sure we got hit on that first cast. First cast, you got him. Oh, it's a tank. It's a tank. Oh my goodness, it's a tank. Oh, crap, man. He has a bend in this 11 weight. Oh, on a beast fly. You gotta be kidding me, dude. Oh, dude, look at this bass. Look at this bass. Second cast. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How epic is that? You guys, look at that beauty, dude. What a toad. Get out of here, dude. Second cast on a beast. You gotta be joking me. Oh, you gotta be joking me. That was too much fun. Are you guys having fun? That was too much fun. Let's do it again. Let's see if there's another. That was probably 18. I wouldn't put him at 20, but he was probably 18 plus. Let's see if we can get another one on a musky fly. Let's give this beast 1 or 2 more casts and we'll switch up. I got to remember my microphone's in my back pocket. You can, I mean, that it's like it's not really there. The swing weight, nothing changes. When you put a beast on this rod, really nothing changes. It's just the way it was before. So let me get you a back cast here with the water. You know, the line ripping up off the water. Probably 65 feet. Of course, we're not really going for it. We're not sending this thing as far as we can. I'm knee deep in the water, right? I'm not as advantageous of being in a boat, high off the water, elevated. We're still stealing with that same wind. Absolutely no problem. Let's get a different fly on there. A lot of these flies are going to be the exact same flies we did with the TFO BC Big Fly. This is a T-bone style. It's a brush synthetic composite T-bone. and it's like a sock. I way overbuilt the brush. This thing is the definition of a sock. It's about 13 inches long with massive hackles on it. Let's see what happens. This is the kind of style of fly that I'd really want to try one of the two-hand methods, because it's hard to throw no matter what you're doing. So there's the Gunnar Brammer silly technique thing where you literally catch the butt in midair to chuck it out there with it. You convert from single hand to two hand while doing it. You still have to do this single hand stuff though up close, and that'll wear you down after a while. But man, you can really do that. That's pretty legit using that technique there. We can, the wind is wrong for trying to go over the shoulder two hand, but we'll see if I can do it. That wind's really grabbing these big flies and making my job tough, but here's a 13-inch Mark Sidoti slammer, dropper shank rig. All right, standard forehand. This slammer is really well done. Ooh. So that is the Sage Payload 9-foot 3-inch 11-weight meat checking machine. Some of my closing thoughts would be this. I think the swing weight is too high. There's a few things that you could do to mitigate that. One, I really wish they would have taken it shorter. So if you look at their other rods, they have 8.9s, like the 6, 7, 8, and 9 weights are all 8.9s. The 10's a 9, and this is a 9.3. So it's a full 9-foot rod with an extended butt, and a 9-foot 11 weight designed with that kind of stiff tip to be able to handle these lines and to have that reserve power to handle these lines and turn fish. It is at the upper end of the spectrum of what you can have for a swing weight that people can actually cast and handle. And the problem is pike and muskie, big game fishing, it's blind casting for the most part. You're just fan casting over and over and over again for an entire day. And I can tell you right now, I don't think I could use this rod for 5 or 6 hours straight. I would be begging for mercy and asking for a chance to row the boat. So it's a powerful rod. I do think the taper's fantastic. I think that how stiff the tip is beautifully done to pair with modern streamer lines. I just wish they would have taken the 9-foot 3 and made it 8-foot 3 or made it 7-foot 10 and really made a choice between a single hand rod and a two-hand rod. You know, if you're gonna go two-hand, make it 9.6, make it 10 foot, put a 550 grain window on it or a 600 grain window on it and really market it for that. Or shrink it, make it a dedicated boat rod that you can actually cast all day long by shrinking the length to mitigate the swing weight. I think those are two really cool things that they could have done to maybe make it more successful. I will say it is a pretty good balance of the in-between world of being both, get out of here, of being both a single hand and a two-hand rod. You know, if you had a smaller fly on it, you could definitely rock single hand for a pretty long period of time in a big game setting, fishing, you know, a 5-inch bulkhead and bucktail deceivers or in saltwater conditions. You could really get a lot of use out of that. As soon as you go to a big fly, you're going to be backhanding, and I think that bulb on the bottom is a mistake. It definitely digs into your arm a little bit. You can choke up and do some two-hand techniques. They worked pretty well, but I think you need to overline it a little bit unless your casting is just flawless. And again, that's not a technique I'm super proficient in, but you guys would have to practice that. If you were going to really get the best out of this rod, I think the two-hand is what you're going to need to gravitate towards because the swing weight is a little bit too high and a little bit unforgiving. I would be really interested in seeing this rod and getting my hands on their 6, 7, 8 weight because if they take this taper profile with that stiff tip and that 8-9 size and a 6 weight and a 7 weight, man, that would be a sick smallmouth and brown trout streamer rod. I bet that thing kicks some serious butt. That'd be really fun to get my hands on, and maybe we could do a smallmouth review next year with with a 6-weight payload or something like that. But the 11-weight, I think it's just a little bit overbuilt. It's a little bit too much stress and strain on the wrist for what it is. But it's pretty cool as far as balancing one hand, two hand. And again, I don't know if that was their intention. I don't know if this is just specifically referring to the extended cork for fighting fish. We put that to good use on a pretty hefty smallmouth. That was pretty sweet to actually be able to do. But I don't know. It's in the switch class as far as handle, spacing, design, and layout, being able to do two-hand and single-hand. But I would have really liked to see them make a distinction, one or the other, instead of being in between. So those are my thoughts. Take it or leave it. Make sure you like and comment if you want a chance to win this guy. Hopefully, if you do, you spend some time, figure out what technique is going to work for you so that you can maximize your potential. It did behave the best with the Elite Predator fly line at 475. The 480 grain full sink felt amazing as far as the loading and the performance of the rod. Really was quite astounding. I enjoyed it. But that full sink is not going to be something I'm going to want to run through chrome snakes in a chrome tip top. You might want to look to a 12-weight line if you're going to fish your intermediates like an Outbound short and see if that extra head weight really helps you get more performance out of the rod. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. We're going to be looking at a Chippewa River's Custom Rods Predator stick. It's pretty epic. I've owned one for about 2 years now, so it'll be a fun review, especially if you're looking for a one-piece rod. It's probably the only one in the market. It's pretty sweet. So I'll catch you then. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that smallmouth. I am still kind of grinning about it. What a tank. What a beast. See ya.